All right, thank you. Welcome to the joint meeting of the DPW Subcommittee and Town Council meeting of Tuesday, May 4th, 2021. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Department of Public Works Town Council is being conducted via hybrid remote participation only. No in-person attendance or members of the public will be permitted in the council chambers, and every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching Southbridge Cable Access Channel 192 or by remote information noted below. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website at www.ci.southbridge.mass.us as soon as we are able. A roll call vote is required for all votes taken under this order. Agenda item number 1, call to order. Councilor Marchetti, myself, I am here. Councilor Dow?
Present.
Councilor Steves?
Present, remotely.
Citizen Member Bemis?
Present remotely.
Citizen Member Lazo?
Present.
I will also note that the DPW Director Heather Blakely is here. The Vice Chairman John Daniel is here. Councilor Scott Lazo, Councilor Catrona, Councilor Adams is online, and Greg Russell of VHB is also online, and the Town Manager McCall has just come online. Agenda item number 3. Consider and approve joint DPW Town Council meeting minutes of March 30th, 2021. Could I have a motion, please?
Second.
Second.
Any questions, corrections?
Just one quick one,
Councilor Steves?
Chairman. Yeah. Under item number 6, it refers to a right of intent. It should be a notice of intent for the Conservation Commission. And it should be the Conservation Commission, not committee.
All right. Is that all?
Yeah, looks like it.
Thank you. Anybody else? If there are no other corrections or comments, we'll take a vote. Councilor Dow?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Citizen Member Lazo? Yes. Citizen Member Bemis?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you. Motion passes. Agenda item number 4, consider and approve joint DPW Town Council meeting minutes of April 12th, 2021. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion vote.
Second.
Any comments, corrections?
I'm going to abstain from that because I don't think I was at that meeting.
Okay. I think you were. You were at the last meeting, weren't you? Yes. Yeah, all right. That's all right. You can still vote on it even. Anybody else? Anybody has any comments? And for those who have called in, don't hesitate to just shout it out because it's hard to see you up there. So, all right, if there's no other comments, all those in favor, Councilor Dow?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Citizen Member Lazo? Yes. Citizen Member Bemis?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. 4-0, it passes. Agenda item number 5. Discuss, review, proposed transfer from account number 600-440-525-100, sewer repair and maintenance of equipment, to account number 600-440-520-300, sewer collection systems for $8,000 to cover the cost of pump rebuild compressor rebuild, and new flow meter, and provide funds for the remaining part of the year. Entertain a motion to vote to recommend that council approve this transfer.
Motion move.
Councilor Dow first. Anybody, can I have a second, please?
Second. Got it, we did.
Mr. Lazo seconded. I'll turn this over to Heather. Thank you.
Good evening. So with the sewer plant, as you all know, that we have multiple different counts. We have one that's for the collection system. We have one that's more for the plant. So what we're looking to do is just move money that's actually for the plant equipment into the collection system to cover costs, because we're concerned that before the end of the year, we would use all up the collection system costs all up. They had costs, this is for rebuild of E1 pumps. We have to maintain the E1 pumps in the system that were put in under any of the projects that were financed. So Alpine Drive, there's a couple different locations in town that were financed through the sewer department. We have to keep maintaining those pumps. So that was for rebuild of the pumps. It's for rebuild of the Dennison Drive compressor at the pump station. Instead of buying a new one, they had it rebuilt. And the other cost was for a new flow meter, that the flow meter was malfunctioning, and we use it for billing purposes, so we had to get it operational. Now, normally, these are normal costs.
Hold on.
No, mistake.
I think it's just, these are normal costs that would be covered under this line item because they're all collections related. They total about $8,000. We're just concerned that there might be other small costs, other flow meters, other pumps that need to be fixed, that we wouldn't have enough money going forward. So we're asking for the $8,000 transfer ahead of time to be able to cover any of the costs that could be upcoming.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Councilor Dow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the way you're asking here to rebuild the pump, and the way you explain it is to have extra fund in case we need to. So you already rebuilt the pump and...
They're already done. You would be able to cover it with the money we have in there right now.
Okay.
But every month, they have a reimbursable cost because they have to do regular maintenance and regular repairs to the collection system. They have to have money in this account so that they can keep them. We couldn't not rebuild these things. You have to keep everything functional. We just move forward. We just don't want to run out of money. So these were what this $8,000 represented. This will leave us enough money to get through, hopefully through the end of the year, as long as we don't have any major repairs.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilor Catrona?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to DPW Director Blakely. Do you have redundancy in flow meters and redundancy in pumps?
In some of our pumps we do. E1 pumps we don't have redundancy because these are at people's homes. These are actually at residents. They're like it's a pump system that would take your sewer from your house and pump it into our system. Normally, that would be the responsibility of the homeowner, but when we did these loans, and I wasn't here when we did them, part of that requirement when you put in these pump systems were that you had to take on repair and maintenance of them. It was in the loan agreement because we use SRF funds, which is the clean water funds, so we have to take responsibility for the maintenance. So those don't have redundancy. The compressor, I believe, has a redundancy, but obviously we need to make sure that we don't lose both of them at the same time. The flow meter, we don't have this is a flow meter that monitors actually down at the AO complex on their wastewater. It doesn't have a redundancy.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other councilors? Any citizen members? Nope. Councilor Steves?
No, I'm okay with it.
Citizen member Bemis?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll have a roll call then, if there's no other questions. Councilor Dow?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Citizen member Lazo?
Yes.
Citizen member Bemis?
Yes,
And I'm a yes, 4-0, motion passes. Agenda item number 6, discuss, review, proposed transfer from account number 600-440-525-100, sewer repair and maintenance of equipment, to account number 600-440-530-700, to sewer testing and evaluation for $750 to cover increase in sampling costs for sludge, and entertain a motion to council to vote to recommend that council approve this transfer.
Second.
Citizen Member Lazo first, Councilor Dow second. Heather?
Okay, so I know we've already come in front of you at one point to transfer this money in once. At that time, I was told by the sewer department that it was going to be $630 a sample. The last sample they ran ended up being $905. There was a new guidance that came out from DEP on how to run these samples, and it included some reference to running a field blank. They did the analysis on the field blank, which was an extra $275. Since that sample has been taken, and a little questioning on my part even, they have get clarifications from DEP that it's up to our discretion whether we want the field blank ran. We don't feel like we need to have the field blank run, so in the future it won't be run. So it will be $630 again, but because of the increased cost for that $275 for the field blank, we need to pay that cost. We're going to need more money. I spoke to Chairman Marchetti before and said, I'm going to recommend that we reduce this to $300 just to make sure that we have enough to cover the cost for the end of the year, but I don't believe we're going to need the extra money now because I've already had a discussion with them, and basically I'm going to tell them if they run the field blank again, then they can take it out of their own accounts because I'm not paying for it. I'll pay for the misunderstanding once because it is a new program and they don't understand, and it's not really costing us any, we're just transferring money from one place to the other, but now they've been told, don't run the field blank.
All right, thank you. Any questions from anyone?
So promise the last time?
Well, I'm going to say no, so all they're going to do is come tell you guys that I'm not paying their bill, but they've been told, don't run the field blank. The only problem I can see is if for some reason when they run this sample, there's an issue, like we have a high reading or high levels, and they want to run another sample to make sure that we can, if we get a high level, our sludge is no good. So, like our compost is no good. So there'll be a want to rerun that sample in the future. But we're going to go with the positive that we're not going to have to run another sample, that we're going to have no problems. So far, we've run 3 samples. We haven't had any high hits for PFAS in our sludge, which is good. But I can't promise that they're not going to come to me and say the levels are up. In order to be able to keep using our sludge as compost, we need to run another test and make sure that this was just an anomaly. But we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. That a good answer?
Thank you, Councilor Dow. Anyone else have any questions? Councilor Steves,
No, I'm okay.
Citizen Member Bemis, any questions?
I'm all set, thank you.
All right, so if somebody would like to make a motion to amend this to reduce it to $300?
So moved. We could just make it as a friendly amendment.
You want to make it a friendly amendment? All right. Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
As long as the people who firsted and seconded it have no problem with that.
All right. So we're recommending to the council, to the full council, of paying, motion to recommend that council approve the transfer of $300. So I'll take a roll call. Councilor Dow?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Citizen Member Lazo? Yes. Citizen Member Bemis?
Yes,
And I'm a yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 7. Discuss, review the proposed tie-in bond contract, amendment number 2, for additional engineering services related to the design of the Ashland Avenue Bridge replacement for $36,850 to be funded by Chapter 90. Entertain a motion to vote to recommend that council ratify contract amendment number 2.
Second.
Motion by Steve Lazo, second by Dow. Heather?
Okay, so you can see that there's an amendment. This is Ashland Ave Bridge down, I don't know how to describe it, but hopefully you all know where it is. because it is kind of crucial that you have a sense of where this is and why this is important. This is kind of broken into 3 different parts if you look at it. The first one is the hydraulic and analysis requirements. Mass DOT has changed their guidance since we did the contract with Tie and Bond. Their guidance, not their guidance, their requirements for their Chapter 85 permits and this H&H requirements have been increased greatly. So in order to meet the requirements, they need additional engineering money because it wasn't included in their original contract because it wasn't a requirement at the time. Mass DOT has changed the requirements. They won't approve our bridge without doing it. So either if we don't do it, we're not getting our money, and we're never fixing our bridge. So it's one or the other. It's not a all or nothing type of situation at that point. The second one, so that's the H&H analysis, number 1, which is $8,600 of this cost. The second item is the redesign of the ring wall, of the wing wall. If you turn onto the second page of their proposal, you can kind of see the existing wing wall. Most of that is not on our property. That's private property of the business owner on the corner. The problem is that wing wall is severely compromised. Conventional standard design would be that we would replace that in kind there, but there's not a really good place to tie into it, which was making the cost of the project go up and up and up because we were expanding the wing wall placement. That was conventional, replaced that one, but they kept on saying, we don't know where we're going to competently even tie into this, and now we're onto private property. They said to me, there is a different way we can do this that might actually help us with the project where we'll go along the property line, but that would be a redesign. So that is the $21,000 that you're seeing for that redesign. They have a concept plan of how they want to do it, but they know, they have to have the money to be actually able to do the details of that design. The third is the non-standard guardrail. I asked for this proposal because the 2 guardrail treatments, if you're familiar with Mass DOT requirements for guardrail treatments, they're about 20 feet longer than the end of the guardrail. If you're also familiar with that side of the bridge in those 2 locations, if you extended the guardrail from where the bridge end now, you wouldn't have an entrance there into their property anymore. Right. So I said, we have to do something, and it's on both sides. The other side that's used by the school for parking, that would be the same thing. I said, I need an alternate design here for these guardrails, and an alternate, we're going to have to do an exceptions report, which means that's more cost to DOT too. We need an alternate design so that we can give them the entrances to their parking lots and show them when we go to meet with them, look, this is what it was going to be if we did standard practice. We're willing to do this for you so that we're not impacting your property as much. It's still going to be somewhat of an impact because right now it's wide open. The guardrail doesn't even extend past the bridge, hardly at all. That's not acceptable if we're going to take this grant money. So those are the 3 items that we're looking at. I think we have to be both, safety conscious and meet Mass DOT's requirements, or they're not going to approve of our project. And we have to be sensitive to the business owners that we're doing as best we can to address any of their concerns. And if I saw it as a concern, I'm sure they were going to see it as a bigger concern than what I was seeing. They're still probably not going to like what we're proposing even now, because it is somewhat of an impact, but it's a lot less than what we would if we went with the standard design that we already have. We can elect not to do either one of those 2 other upgrades. It's just going to it's going to give us impacts to those 2 properties, number 1, and it's going to make the project more costly, number 2, in the long run. That's why doing the alternate is a value engineering. They know it will be cheaper to do the other design.
Okay, thank you. We'll have some questions. I'll start with Citizen Member Lazo.
Through you to Heather. Heather, it's my understanding that you haven't talked to any of the property owners yet until you get this
Correct.
done, okay. As I'm looking at this picture, I can see where you're talking, you're taking some of the parking over there. So the bridge is going to be wider than it is now, am I correct in saying that?
It's a longer span.
A longer span, but width?
I believe it's slightly wider too.
So it's going to encroach on that
Yeah.
parking lot there and on the other side. Okay.
And plus the guardrail, the guardrail end treatments, this basically has no guardrail treatment right now at
Yeah.
all. You could basically run into
There's
it.
no question that that bridge is old, and looking at this picture, it's ready
It's
to fall
ready
in.
to, yeah.
So.
It's one of our worst rated bridges.
Thank you. Thank you very much for answering that question. Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else? Counselor Dow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you can get the money back from the Chapter 90, correct?
This is going to come from Chapter 90, correct?
It's not from the town, no?
No, it's Chapter 90 funds.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Councilor Steve?
Counselor Steves?
Yeah, just one quick question. Heather, I'm just curious, what kind of an impact would this extended barrier have on safety? Has there ever been a safety issue with that bridge as far as people, like ending up in the brook?
Not yet, but it could happen. If you went through the guardrail there now, you would go into the water. And you could definitely go through that guardrail. It's not even competent. If you went out and looked at it, it's not even on a wall right now, parts of it, so. And it's a very long drop. It would not be a good thing. It doesn't,
I was just curious if it's ever happened, so.
it's not a question whether there's ever been a problem there in the past. DOT has their standards, and if we're not meeting their standards, they're not going to release the small bridge money to us. So you can't design something that doesn't meet their standard or that they're not going to give you an exception for.
Right, I understand that, I was just curious. Okay, thanks.
Citizen Member Bemis, did you have anything?
Just because I'm not a longtime resident of Southbridge, I'm trying to understand what this is. Is that over the Lebanon Brook, Heather?
Yes, it's over
Okay.
Lebanon Brook.
All right, I was
Is
just
that
looking
Lebanon
at it.
Brook?
Okay, that's all
No.
I had, thank you.
It's, what is that? This is off of, so let me see if I can describe where it is. If you're coming up 131 from the Dudley end,
Where D&D used to be.
yeah, I don't know if she knows what D&D is, though.
Oh, she might.
Do you know D&D?
Superior Cake.
Do you know where Superior Cake
Yeah,
is?
yeah, I'm looking at it on Google Maps now, so
Yeah.
I got it.
Okay. It's right there
you.
where the shop turn is if you kept going
Yep.
straight up Ashland Ave.
The village, the village.
Okay, yep, thank you.
Counselor Lazo, did you have a follow-up? Okay.
Go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to Heather, to DPW Director Blakely. Can you tell us what's left in Chapter 90 funds for the remainder of the year?
Off the top of my head, no, but it's in millions.
4 million, 2 million?
I don't, undesignated,
Yes.
I'm going to have to go back and rerun the numbers. I didn't look it up today, so I'll have to, because we have to remember we're designated Main Street funds to it, we've designated South Street funds to it, we've designated this bridge, we've designated Elm Street Bridge, so we have a lot of places that we've designated Chapter 90.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the purpose of Chapter 90 funds to repair roads, correct?
It's for all transportation purposes. Bridges, roads, it can even be equipment, it can be drainage, it can be,
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Citizen Member Lazo?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Heather, I agree. I mean, this is a no-brainer. That's all heavy industrial in there. There's heavy trucks going over that bridge every day. I'm surprised it really hasn't caved in yet.
let's
But
hope it doesn't.
it needs definite
I don't
attention.
want to close another bridge, let's.
Yeah. Not a good idea. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Town Manager McCall, did you want to add something? No? Okay, thank you.
Not at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, we met yesterday to talk about many of these, so I received some of the input already from Ms. Blakely, and my questions have been addressed.
All right, thank you. I only have a couple of questions. This is amendment number 2, so amendment number 1 was,
Had to do with the right-of-ways.
had to do with the right-of-way. And that's not what this is tonight?
No,
Revised suggestion, construction approach? It's
Nope.
not for the right-of-way?
nope.
All
It
right.
was more for surveying and right-of-way for this, because we were going to have these impacts to these properties.
So their original bid on this was engineering services for $224,800. That was back in 2019. They raised it another $9,000, and now they're raising it another $36,000, All right. So now we're at 276.50. And it's your feeling that this would save on construction costs?
Yeah, especially the second part, that second item of redesign of that wing wall will
All
help
right.
save on the cost.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll do a roll call then. Counselor Dow,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
System Member Lazo,
Yes.
System Member Bemis,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 8, discuss, review the results from the request for proposals for the watershed forestry management services and consider awarding the contract to North Quabbin Forestry Services for an initial term of 4 years with an optional extension up to 10 years. The amount of the contract will be for the $26,270 for preparation of the 10-year stewardship plan and additional fee for harvest management per each tree cutting at a reimbursable rate per contract documents, with the first-year rate being $1,000 per harvest plus $10 per thousand board feet for lumber and $5 per cord for cord wood. The stewardship plan cutting plan will be funded by account reservoir capital account 610-450-583-000-21584, and the harvest management fees will be paid by the proceeds received from the sale of the wood for each harvest. Entertain a motion to vote to recommend that council award the contract to North Quabbin Forestry Services and ratify the contract agreements. Could I have a motion, please?
Motion moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Dow, seconded by Citizen Member Lazo. Heather?
Okay, let's see. So I think all of you are very familiar that we have over 1,000 acres of watershed land up around our reservoirs for the water treatment plant. It's part of the water system, it's part of that. Historically, we've had these stewardship plans in the past and done harvesting in the past. Actually, I don't think any have occurred since I've been here, but they were occurring regularly before that. What it does is it helps us manage our watershed and the trees in our watershed. Actually, if you talk to most foresters, they will tell you that in order to keep the forest healthy and prosperous and functioning the way it's supposed to, you need to sometimes go in, thin out trees, take the mature trees out so that the younger trees can grow up, and it's a process that they do when they maintain it. So what this is to develop the stewardship plan for that watershed, which will tell us what kind of trees we have, what he recommends for cuttings, and put the plan in place that can be approved by DCR, that's Department of Recs and Conservation. Then when we want to do a cutting, we already have our plan in place. They already know what they're supposed to do. He targets an area for the cutting. He says this is how much, we want to cut. He helps us solicit the bids for the cutting, for the sale of the timber harvest, and then he gets a cut of that timber harvest. So our upfront cost is the cost of that stewardship plan. Also, part of his proposal, which will be a reimbursement cost, is that he has to also help us apply for a grant. But it's one of these reimburse after you actually pay for it. So he will help us do the application for the grant. It will cover up to 50% of the cost of this plan, but I didn't want to tell you that we're automatically going to get it. It depends on DCR and how many applications they get. There's a this is one of these grants, it's a very high likelihood that we're going to get based on discussions with him, but it will be about 50% of that cost for that stewardship plan. This will allow us to do timber sales. I should have had the numbers and I don't, but it's going to be over $100,000 over year and year, so it will bring some income into our water plant, to our water system for the sale of the timber also. Now, they all have to be managed through DCR and approved and everything else, so we're hiring the professional forester to do the initial plan, help us get that grant, and then target our cutting for the next 10 years.
All
And
right.
the estimates on the reimbursables are based on typical harvests that we had done in the past. So they're, that's what you see in the number of what it would cost per year is for one harvest based on our typical harvest in the past.
All right, thank you.
Okay?
Any questions from anyone? Counselor
I've
Dow?
got some, Mr. Chairman.
Counselor Steves?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, Heather, I'm sorry to say this, but this is one I'm going to totally oppose. For the same arguments that I had with when we back when we had the issues surrounding the solar zoning issues, because this is a perfect example of a situation where I heard what you said about the top foresters saying you need to thin a forest and all that. Mother Nature does that just fine. And this is a perfect example where the harvesters invariably go after the biggest trees, almost always, unless they're really bad shape. But those are the ones that harvest that store the most carbon. We need the big trees out there for a variety of reasons. Not only do they provide habitat, they store the carbon. The status of the forest back there is what helps protect our watershed and from contamination going into the streams and whatnot that end up in the reservoirs themselves. And this is a situation where I don't believe that the whole concept of forestry, the way it's traditionally done in our society, has much to do with protecting the woodlands. It has everything to do, as you mentioned, with raising $100,000. And I believe that this is a situation where we should not be monetizing our watershed. We need to be protecting it. I would much rather see people back there hiking on it and enjoying it than having trucks and so forth going in there and chopping up the timber and dragging it out of there and causing more damage. I'm sorry, this is a definite no from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Could caller 01 please mute your mic, please? All right, anybody else have any questions?
No.
No one? Nope. Citizen Member Bemis, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. All right, the only thing, I just wanted one quick question. Lumber is at an all-time price right now, so you think we're going to get a good value for any of the lumber that we harvest here? Okay,
I do believe you get a very good value.
okay.
And I know there's different approaches, as Councilor Steves mentioned, of whether you leave it where it is or you harvest it. I know that it can be done in a safe manner, and it's been done in their past, and it's a difference in opinion. I will go with DCR and the foresters that tell me that it's something that needs to be done. I personally have land that I do have foresting on, so I've seen more managed forestry land all my life because I grew up on a 100-acre farm that we always forested. So I understand, but I also know that sometimes those trees get old and diseased if you don't properly manage them and have them rotated through.
All right, thank you. All right, if there's no other questions, then we'll do a roll call. Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
No.
Citizen Member Lazo?
Yes.
Citizen Member Bemis?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion passes 3-1. Thank you. Agenda item number 9, discuss review change order number 1 from Lynch for the emergency repair of the broken water main at Main and Central Street for the amount of $24,342.18.
So moved.
This change order will be funded by the Water System Capital Account number 610-450-583-000-21580. Entertain a motion to vote to recommend that council approve this change
moved.
order. Citizen Member made the motion.
Second.
Could I have a second? Councilor Dow. Heather?
I think everybody remembers when this water main break happened. This is, change order has been negotiated with the town manager in Lynch. We actually were able to negotiate it down from what their initial change order was, and I don't remember what it was. I think it was about $10,000 more than this. So there was a 6-inch main that crossed to Central Street. It's an old 6-inch main. It was definitely very tuberculated. When we uncovered it, we couldn't, when the main was finally uncovered and the break was discovered, it was pretty evident that it was not a new break. It was not clean. The tuberculation was actually inside the break. It was more likely that when we started to dig around it, it just loosened it up and let it go quicker because there was no more compacted soils around it. And the reason it wasn't coming to the top up into Main Street is that it was in very close proximity to Nuisance Brook and had found its way right into Nuisance Brook culvert without us ever knowing about it. It just goes to show that this is one of the reasons why we're doing this project. I know that Councilor McKetty came down to the site and I was able to show him down to the and show him the pipe because we still have it there. It's about, you know, it's a 6-inch pipe and with about a 2-inch hole through it. So for water flow. So it's severely tuberculated. I can tell you that the mains on Central Street in general, and there's 2 of them that we connect to, both of them are very, very bad. They're some of our oldest mains in town. So we will, we need to pay this because they did stay and help us try to figure out how to get this shut off, and it took them it took them all night until early the next day to actually get this main fixed, which leads to the next change order. The reason why it took so long is because we had valves that would not hold and would not operate, and we couldn't even get a shutdown to be able to do this repair, both on Elm Street and further down on Main Street. So without turning half the water off to half the town, we weren't able to isolate this repair, which is one of the reasons why, again, we need to do this, repair this water main. 100-year-old valves, over 100-year-old water mains. At some point, we have to start replacing our below-grade infrastructure. So this will come out of existing money already in our budget that is in system. We always have some money in there in case there are water main breaks, so we can cover this cost within our existing budget.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions? System Member Alonso.
Councilor Dow was first.
All right, Councilor Dow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for you. To Heather, construction is being done on Main Street, correct?
Yeah.
Is that you guys was working with the town equipment on that street, or the company was working?
The company uncovered it. The water system was there as oversight.
So what was included? Why we digging all Main Street? Isn't it to change some of the old sewer and waters and different utility underground? That's what we open Main Street and do
Yes.
the.
We're changing
so why,
the water
why,
mains.
Why that not included?
Well,
Why we have
they
to
didn't
take
know that it was
why we have to
broken.
take the blame, either if it's old and when there was digging around it. You
It
know,
was-
we all know it probably got.
It was
Touch.
pretty clear to everybody that was there on site that it was pre-existing. So we can't put the blame on them and just say it wasn't pre-existing.
I'm not putting any blame on anybody, but if it's a pre-existing, it will see some water damage before. You can see all leak or something if it's pre-existing.
You could tell that the water had been traveling through the soil into the culvert, which was within 20 feet of it for a very long time. It had a very natural flow path with no restriction. All the fines had been washed out of the gravel. It was going right directly into that. Nuisance Brook is a huge laid stone foundation culvert underneath Main Street. The water was traveling right into that without a problem. That would be why we never saw it. Plus, it wasn't as big of a leak until the soil started to be uncovered, and then it opened up more.
So anybody took any picture at that time? Because if it's a pipe broke before, you can tell if it's broke
We
recently.
could tell by the condition of the pipe.
Or is being existing by
We-
the colors and all that. Did anybody have any picture of that, any evidence? Or
I was there personally and saw it at 4 o'clock in the morning.
after it broke? You
Yeah.
wasn't there when they're digging and suddenly the
The
water
water started bubbling up when they were digging.
And you was there for in the morning?
I was not there then, but the water department was, the contractors were. Initially, we thought they broke it.
I mean-
Everybody thought they did. But after uncovering it and seeing the conditions of the pipe and the conditions of the tuberculation on the break of the pipe, it wouldn't have got there immediately. You wouldn't have seen any of that. It wasn't just dirt, it was built up scale. So there's a difference. Trust me, Joe, I 100% wanted to blame it on Lynch. There was no question in my mind that I wanted to put it on them. I can't, from looking at the pipe, blame them.
So you say already Mr. McCall negotiate something with him, you say?
This is the price that he had already
So
negotiated.
why they agree if they don't have nothing to do with the pipe? Why they will negotiate from the beginning?
We negotiate,
I'm happy.
okay,
Hold on, one at a time, please.
go ahead, I'll defer.
I was going to say, I'm happy to jump in. So we did do an emergency waiver for this because it was an emergency situation. And at the time, Ms. Blakely informed me that we believed, I had shut my camera off, I'm sorry, because of bandwidth. But we had believed that Lynch had broken the pipe, and Lynch thought they had broken the pipe. So they had a lot of equipment on site as well as people, so they diverted people to making the repair and doing the excavation. And so it's my understanding that when Hydrotech came out to do the valve insertion, they also concurred that it was a pre-existing crack in the pipe. But nevertheless, when we got the first bill from Lynch, they included everybody that they had on site, and the argument that I made to them is if we had called you in to help us with an emergency repair, you would not have responded with such force that you did that night, only because you were already on site doing the pavement work. So we got them to reduce that bill significantly to only what should have been necessary to assist us with the excavation for the purpose of fixing the pipe. So they had previously sent a bill that was, I want to say, almost 50% higher, closer to, in the $30,000 range. And we were able to have them knock that back because we said you wouldn't have needed that many people to fix that. Had we called you up, you wouldn't have sent that many people or that much equipment. And they acknowledged that. They only had that show of force there because they were already there and they thought they were. So they were doing everything they could. We said we wouldn't have needed that. You wouldn't have sent that if we were paying. So I hope that clears that.
Thank you, Mr.
Continue,
Town
Mr.
Manager. Does that answer your question?
Can I continue?
Sure, go
Thank
ahead,
you.
right ahead.
How did you say that your team was there 4 in the morning, but the construction doesn't start till late
The break
morning?
happened at noon time.
You say, I heard something 4 in the morning?
I was there at 4 in the morning because that's when they called me to tell me that they still hadn't had it repaired. It happened at noon. They called me in and said, Heather, you need to come down here and see what you can come up with ideas because at this point we're exhausted and we don't know what else to do. So please come and see if you have any other ideas. About the same, I said to them, well, you better find somebody to, have you called Hydrotech? They said, yes, they're on their way because Hydrotech does insertion valves, which is what you do on a live line. So they were going to do an insertion valve to isolate it. He goes, but see, you better come down here and see this. So that's why I came down. It wasn't until about 9 o'clock in the morning that we had the water system back on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. System Member Lazo?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Heather. Heather, knowing these pipes are over 100 years old in the ground, why wasn't this section included in the price?
It is part of the project.
It was part of the
Yep.
process. So
It was just,
Lynch didn't expect to run into an old pipe and break it or just
Well, but they
expose. I
didn't.
know they probably didn't break it, but expose. They should have, I'm sure they've done many jobs like this. And my question is why are we paying the $75,000 when Lynch should have known?
that's for the insertion valves.
Yeah, but that's because of the break.
No. The insertion
Oh,
valves.
I'm misunderstanding this.
Yes, you're misunderstanding. Those are proposed insertion valves we haven't done. We've installed one insertion valve. The $24,000, the first change order, was
Okay.
because of the break. What we found out during the break is that we couldn't isolate the system to be able to even connect the new system to the old system.
All right.
And so what we thought we were going to be able to do, which we have, we're kind of on to the next item, but it's all kind of related, so I'll try to expound a little bit. What we found is we couldn't isolate from Main Street, from the Rotary, the water coming back up, and we couldn't isolate from Elm Street coming over. That the valves, the next valve in line and the next valve in line after that, none of them held, meaning they weren't shutting down. So in order to be able to tie in Elm Street and Main Street on the lower end, we have to be able to isolate those lines so that we can physically reconnect to them for the new system. And by installing an isolation valve, we'll be able to have that as a shutoff valve. Now we'll have at the connection and at that isolation part, which won't be right next to the connection. It will be another couple hundred feet down. So we will have a good line valve that holds in the future. We'll actually have two, because we'll have our new one and then that other one. Many of the valves did hold. We are able to, and we've already connected. The new system is already connected on Goddard Street, on Hamilton Street, on Central Street. I think Foster Street is already connected. There's a issue on, we can't connect Everett Street because we basically have to remove the existing lines out to be able to connect it, but we have to keep the existing lines live. So right now we have the two existing lines are live and the new line, sections of it are live. But in order to make all the interconnections, it takes that second change order, those isolation valves, or we would have to literally shut off major parts of Southbridge to be able to isolate it. And the problem with doing that is the more you shut off and try to isolate, the more people that are out of water and the more water it has to drain. So there it takes longer and longer and longer to do those connections. So we try to get those all done in a day so that we're not inconveniencing the people that are going to be without water for a shorter period of time.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Before we continue, caller one, could you please mute your phone? Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Councilor Catrona, anything? No. Councilor Lazo.
Mr. Chairman, just quickly, Heather, could you repeat? I'm looking at the date when they requested this. Why did it take so long to get to the council again?
So we've been trying to work with them on all of these change orders to get a whole package together to come through. And, we had kind of negotiated that amount, the town manager and I, knowing that it was an emergency procurement. I know I know you guys had been informed about it, so we just didn't rush in to do these change orders. What I like to do is have a package of change orders to come in front of you. This is a little bit bigger than I would have wanted. We also knew we had a negative change order of the 100,000 coming because we made a decision not to remove the existing 6-inch pipe. So for a while we were playing with the balancing of those numbers. Okay, you're going a little over here, but you're going to have this 100,000. But we had gotten to this point where we're like, okay, we need the valves and we need all of that.
And they were good with this?
Yeah, I mean, they'd like to get paid.
Well, that was my point. I'm looking at January 20th, and we're in May.
They're definitely making some rumblings about getting paid for some of these things, yes. So therefore, sometimes it takes a little time to get us in here too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Steves, do you have any questions? Citizen Member Bemis?
I'm all set, thank you.
All right, thank you.
One more question.
Councilor Dow?
I just want to understand it more clear when
About the insertion?
Mr. Lazo, he say it was included in the budget. I understand the valve, maybe you want to add it, but the pipe himself, is that it was included in the contract, so why we need to pay for it if it's included? Is that what I understood? You asked the question?
No, I think he's talking about the insertion valves.
No, the insertion valves, that's what this is for.
No, that's two. One is the...
So then my question, if we do on Main Street and you're right there in that pipe, 100 years old, why wasn't included in the construction from the beginning?
The replacement of the pipe that's broken was included in the construction. Is that what you're talking, or why are the insertion valves included?
No, not the valve, the pipe broken. Is that,
The-
they're gonna fix it?
They were going to replace that section of pipe no matter what. But because they had to do it in emergency fashion and have to pay everybody overtime and stay up all night to do it, that's out of their normal scheduled work. So that's why we have to pay for it.
So now when the worker on Main Street, any other pipe broke, was any reason, it's always is gonna be extra of overtime?
Only if it's not within the regular scheduled day. So if something happened and we held them there longer to help repair it, if they caused it, then we don't pay for it. If this was caused by Lynch, this break, we wouldn't be paying for this. They would be paying it for themselves.
So technically, we're paying only for the overtime, not for any other,
We're paying for their additional work that they stayed later and for the time that they lost because they weren't able to work on their system.
This include the valves?
The insertion valve was paid directly back to Hydrotech. That was about $10,000.
I don't know. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Counselor. But my only question is that, you know, I realize that this is just the cost of doing business. You're always going to have change orders. But, you know, where was the oversight? They knew there were going to be problems. That's why contingency fees are built in. You don't know what's going to be under the ground.
So in an ideal world, and I've tried to figure out how to, because I know everybody wants to have a contingency, so I never have to come in front of you for a change order. But you're not going to just, I can't say in a contract, I'm putting a I want to put $200,000 in here in contingencies, because you know what the contractor's going to do? He's going to make sure I get to $200,000 in contingencies. So you don't want to put a line of just anything for contingencies.
Right.
It's okay when I have something that, okay, we've agreed now that there's that you already said, okay, for removing this 6-inch pipe, it's $100,000. We're not going to have to do that step. Oh, now Heather knows I get a $100,000 change order coming to me, negative credit, right? So when I ask them to do something, or they tell me, look, we're going over in this backfill material because we have to take out so much concrete, I'm not as worried about it because I know I have the 100,000. There's a couple items in this contract that we can use as that type of item. They don't cover all of these change orders, and I think you understand that. I am trying different ways like South Street is out to bid on the street right now. That's another below grade construction. It doesn't have as much underground stuff, which is good because there's not as much, it's just the water lines up there. In one section there's some sewer and a little bit of drainage. It's not Main Street. Main Street has really old drainage that is amazing, to tell you the truth, if you get to see some of the structures when they have them uncovered, because it's all hand-laid brickwork and it's amazing. It has multiple underground Verizon lines, it has underground electrical lines, it has underground gas lines, it has sewer lines, and it has 2 water lines, and we're putting in a 3rd. So it's a spaghetti down there. There are times that you can't even get through all the duct banks, which are the Verizon and the electrical lines, because they're just, you know, so big, and they didn't really care how much room they took up. It's a much more complicated project. I have water system people there continually. They are almost there all the time. They're continuing inspecting the work, and they're continuing there. They're my eyes out there, because I can't be there all the time. I wouldn't be able to get all of this work done if I was there all the time. I get called there when there's a problem or something really specific that I need to look at. But I can't be on site all the time. I joked because I was out there one day and I'm like, I just want to stay out here and do this and not be in the office. Can I stay here? Because honestly, I really do like to do that type of work. I come from that type of work. But we don't have somebody out there continuously. The engineer has people that come out from time to time. We paid them. We didn't pay for full-time engineering oversight. We paid for part-time engineering oversight. That was a discussion that we had about what we wanted for engineering oversight. So it's fine. We can pay for continuing engineer to have them out there, but you're going to pay $100 an hour at least to have somebody out there.
All right, thank you. Councilor Catrona?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to DPW Director and also to the Town Manager. I guess if you look at the scope of everything that we're looking at tonight, and I know right now we're talking about one agenda item, but we did get off subject. And to continue off subject, we're looking at over $300,000 in change orders tonight. So have to do with this change order and some of the other ones that are upcoming for additional work, for contract quantities, for lateral costs. Where's the engineer? And why isn't our town manager or the DPW director holding the engineer responsible for either putting adults in or for not proposing these to the town the first time that the engineering work was done?
Well,
in my opinion, the engineer missed these and is not being held accountable.
I think we need to go back to taking these one by one.
Okay.
He could not have foreseen a broken pipe
Agreed.
underground. So that's why I want to take them one by one. The engineer is on the phone tonight.
I know.
He is on here. So when we get to it, a question that I will say that I think you want to ask him and appropriately have him speak to that, then we can speak to that. But this one, I will say, there's no way anybody could predict that this was going to have a broken pipe underground or whose fault it was going to be.
Thank you. We can agree on that. I agree on the broken pipe. And I don't feel it's for me to go have a back and forth with the engineer. It's up to the town manager to have that conversation and for you to have the conversation with the engineer. It's not up to us as councilors. We approve the funding, but we need someone that's going to hold. Maybe we need a clerk of the works. Maybe we need someone with more engineering experience. But in my opinion, of many years of being in very similar business, this, from what I see, wasn't done appropriately, and I'll address it when we come to the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Does anyone else? Councilor Lazo?
Just a quick comment. When you do groundwork, that's what we do for a living myself. We're a smaller contractor. When I saw Lynch get this job, Lynch is by far one of the best road contractors in the state, if not the best. A lot of things that you run into in the street are, I know my brother and I talked about it, we're driving by the hole, and there were more pipes, what the director calls spaghetti, and they have to go in between with what, I mean, it's unbelievable when they're doing the laterals and stuff, what they're going through. And I'm amazed that, you know, and I know and I agree with Councilor Catrona on some of what he's saying, accountability and oversight, there's never enough. But when you run into something like this pipe, we've run into these problems. And the thing is, you have a choice. Shut down the water and have residents not have water in a section of your community, or you go into overtime mode, in other words, fix it no matter what it takes. And then later on, the bill shows up. And this is what this is. I think it's fair. I don't think it's outrageous. But at the same time, I was kind of shocked that it took so long to get their money, which, you know, again, as the director says, this is a bigger project. There's a lot of give and take on this project. And I think that in the end, I think it's all going to work out. But again, just one quick question to DPW director. I don't mean to change the subject, but what was that wooden thing you took out of the center of the intersection that Lynch took out? It looked like a wood structure. I'm like, never saw that before. What is it?
So you'll see there was a change order for disposably treated wood. So I think it's part of the old trolley system that went through there.
It was one of the railroads.
So another thing that we couldn't actually predict, there was treated wood, they had to remove it, it's treated, now we have to dispose of it. So that's a change order that you see that you'll see in one of these items that we couldn't.
And again, when you're in the ground, it's much like our fire station we're looking at. What are the cost overruns gonna be? Nobody knows what's in the ground down where that site is. But when you find it, you gotta deal with it. And there's a cost to everything that you deal with, so not saying that oversight's not needed, but, or whether the town manager and the DPW director gotta negotiate these things out. Where they're good for, they are the town agents, they will do their job. But this here is a whole different animal than building a building above ground where you know what you're gonna run into. You're in the ground, I mean, I've drive by, I've been watching it, and my philosophy is you want your roads fixed, tear them up, let's get them done. And we got a good contractor, let's deal with the issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Citizen Member
Chair,
Bemis.
I think he kind of just said a lot of what I was going to say, but I don't think this is fair to be throwing this type of stuff on the town manager or the director. You know, nobody has x-ray eyes, and you want to talk about accountability? Well, maybe the town needs some accountability for the fact that I'm sure, Heather, I'm assuming, there's a lot of unknowns. Nobody knows truly what it looks like under there because it wasn't always documented as such. So you can't hold somebody accountable for something they don't know. In addition to the fact that shame on the town then, you want to blame Heather for the fact that we've got 100-year-old pipes that nobody really understands where they are, what they look like, how they're attached, whatever. The engineer's doing the best that they can with the information that they have. But without x-ray eyes, they don't know what's down there. So I don't think that was fair to put that on the town manager and Director Blakely. I really don't, because these types of projects are so big and there's always going to be unknowns. But like I said, you want accountability, then the town takes accountability for the fact that they waited this long to do this project.
Thank you. Councilor Steves, did you want to ask something?
Nope, just listening.
All right, thank you. If there are no other questions, Councilor Dow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Nobody is putting blame on anybody. We're just probably Council Catrona trying to say, as an engineer, we're not either blaming anybody on that broken pipe, but we doing Main Street, the whole thing. Every pipe, every utility, we know it's old. Why those valves wasn't checked too from the beginning?
I can answer the valve issue, if you would like me to. When you have an active water system and we operate our valves, you don't know if they hold or not. Because the only way you can tell if they hold is by making people go without water. And we don't do that unless it's an emergency situation. So we can operate our valves and we can know whether they turn or not, and we can know whether they open and close, but we'll never know if they're going to hold water until you need to actually close them down and open a hydrant and see if the water stops flowing. That is the only way you can do it. And if I did that to everybody in downtown every year, guess what they would do? Complain.
Again, we doing
You'd be
everything.
answering for that now, Heather.
Hold on.
We
One at a time,
replacing
please.
everything on Main Street. We're not saying you have to do everything in town. We know those valve is old. Sooner or later it need to be repaired. Why we don't do everything one time, every street we go on in the future? I think it should be one of the priority. Those valves make sure it work. I understand where you come from saying, might not work in the right way, whatever, but it need to be included on the budget from the beginning. Like this, we don't face $350,000 extra. We can be repairing any couple of other small street in town. So, accident happened. I'm gonna support that tonight. I'm not gonna blame anybody. But for the future, I think we should make sure any street we go on, we need to replace the utility underground. It should be everything checked, not leaving thing on the side to wait and emergency happen to then we look at it.
I am still not 100% sure that we wouldn't have closed something down 1 week and had it not work or broken it while we did it. When you operate some of these old valves, you could be really asking for trouble. The water system thought they could get a shot down. They never thought that When they came to me, they're like, oh yeah, we will find 2 valves, because the likelihood that the first valve doesn't hold and the second valve doesn't hold also is usually very low. But we were past Dresser Street on Elm Street trying to shut the water down, and it wasn't shutting. But we had it coming from 2 directions. So it was kept on expanding. We could have gone all the way to the rotary, but there was a point where it was just a losing battle. They couldn't get both legs to isolate. They knew both of them were still flowing because they were both still flowing from the hydrants, and they thought they could shut it down. I don't know as many other as complicated of water systems because we do have dual mains in other areas of town. I'm not going to say we don't, but Main Street has dual mains the whole way, and they have interconnections in between them. The interconnection valves don't shut off. The valves that are feeding into them that are interconnecting don't shut off. It was a perfect storm, and I understand what you're saying. We will check, but I can't always still guarantee. And just to put an item in to say, I just want insertion valves just in case they're going to be there, you're just going to inflate the cost of the contracts that much more.
Heather, we know it's old. We know it's old. We know nobody touched it for many, many, many years. So technically, I don't want to give her a good, but we're lucky they're working there and they see that pipe, if they don't hit it, broken. So, and let's say they finish everything, they didn't see that pipe broken, now we come to shut that.
We were replacing that pipe no matter what because it crossed Main Street. It was literally dead center in the intersection going down so we were replacing it because we're going 20 feet outside the intersection.
No, but what I'm trying to say, let's say those construction companies not working there and we have that accident, that pipe leak, so those main valves is not going to hold anything. Now we're in
Right.
big trouble.
We would
So
have been doing it
That's why
ourselves.
from the beginning, when we did the contract, that valve should be included. Because we're doing everything on Main Street anew.
We are replacing all the valves. The insertion valves are outside of the, we are replacing all the valves. So
Correct, but it should be
we
included.
just thought the valves that
It
were
should be included in the contract, because now when you change of order, when the construction there, he can put any price you want. You can't negotiate with him. But if it was included in the contract, you
Chair,
might
can
get
we
a
move
half
this,
price.
please?
Hold on. Councilor Lazo, are you done? Councilor?
Yeah, thank you.
All
I-
right, Councilor Lazo.
I know what Council Dow was saying. When you're dealing with an active system, it's loaded and it's working, and you're going to disconnect and connect and disconnect and connect, and you know the pipes are old. When something happens unforeseen, and the engineer drew up the blueprint on how it was going to be, and the guy that's in the field is going to run into the problems of ripping out these wood structures out of Main Street. They didn't figure that. Who knew they were even there? Lived here my whole life and never knew that. But when you're dealing with an active, there's 100 things that could go wrong. And the thing is, the service that they're providing you while it's activated, when something like this happens, is the town doesn't lose its water service. And I remember the night that they worked through. They worked very late, and yeah, it's not cost effective to work at night because they would. So you really have to understand the unforeseen things that can happen underground in a construction field is amazing. And we could turn around and say, Heather and the town manager, we're going to have to negotiate with Lynch to an agreement of what happened. By Heather describing the water flow that was going into Newsom's Brook, that tells you that the line was gone. Yes, we are going to replace it. But unforeseen things happen. You try and turn a valve and a valve, you can't stop it. But for me, this is a change order for an unforeseen situation, I'm going to call it. And they needed to either do it or shut the water off at some point in town.
All right, hold on. Now, Citizen Member Bemis asked that we move this question, and I'm going to ask her, if you still want to do that, we can entertain that motion. I like to let people talk. I think it's almost wrapped up here, so if you still want us to
Chair,
do...
we've allowed it to get off topic, and now we're berating the same topic repeatedly.
All right.
I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion to move the question, and seconded by Councilor Steves. Councilor Dow?
No.
Councilor Lazo? Citizen Member Lazo?
No.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Citizen Member Bemis,
Yes.
and I'm a no. Motion fails. So I'm going to go to Citizen Member Lazo first. He had his hand up.
Okay, Heather explaining me this, she explained to me, I misunderstood it at first. This, I mean, Lynch is a reputable company, don't get me wrong, I know them. This happened at night, you said, this break?
The break
And you
happened.
were called after?
The break happened at noon. I knew
Oh, at
about it
noon,
before I
okay.
left.
Yeah.
They were working on getting shutdowns. Water department's out there turning as many valves as they can to try to get a shutdown. They could shut down certain areas. They isolated Upper Main Street. They knew they had it isolated. They couldn't isolate it from the lower part of Main Street. Lynch is trying to help them look for valves that they thought were buried. They were trying to find, different locations that maybe they could isolate or install things. They stayed because they, at the time, thought it was their break. We have to operate the valves. We operate our system valves. The water department stayed. He had people stay to operate. They had all their cards out there. They were looking at their valve cards, trying to figure out how to isolate it. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning that I got called, that I came back to the site because I got called by Steve Blanchard. He said, Heather, I need you to come look at this because I'm out of ideas. And if you guys know Steve, he's worked on this water system for 20 years. He knows the system better than anybody. But he's like, you got to come help me and see if you can figure out anything else with me. I have called Hydrotech in case we need to put an insertion valve. They're on their way. When I got here, Hydrotech was here. At the time, they didn't know where they could put the insertion valve. That was one of the things they wanted me to help them on because where they wanted to put it on the broken line, they weren't sure they were going to be able to fit it because everything is so close and so tight. They were able to dig it up and uncover it and install that insertion valve, which shut off the flow, allowing them to fix the pipe, put the new piece of pipe in, and turn the water back on.
After that explanation, it had to be done. You can't leave water off on people and even buy apparatus to be out of water. So I'm going to support this now after you explained it to me. I think Lynch needs to be paid. So I'm supporting this.
Thank you. Councilor Dow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Like I say in the past, I'm supporting this, but in the future, I think we need to make sure either those valves in a different street included, because we know it's old. Like this, we don't face the same issue now. This is the whole idea why I'm bringing thing up. Accident happened, thing need to be changed, but I don't think those valves was look at it when we're doing the project. This is what's forget about, regarding the engineer or the company or anybody. Because if those was look at it, we'll be preparing for any, it'll be included in the budget, it need to be changed. You open the street, you open the ground, you're gonna change the pipe, you're gonna do things.
Right.
Those should be included. I don't think it should be left.
So our assumption in the design was, when we designed it, is that the valves outside of the work area were going to hold and that we would be able to isolate the system in the work area. We had no reason to believe that we couldn't isolate Main Street to be able to do those connections. We're really talking about change order 2 now, not change order 1. I just want...
Sounds like it, yeah. Well, I think we're all a little off topic. But
yeah, but,
that's
so I don't
fine.
know if you want to move on 1 and so we can...
why don't we just finish this one
Okay.
up? I think we're almost ready to vote on it.
I understand where you're coming, Joe, and if it means that you want to put isolation valves in every contract, it's going to be a $50,000 item on every contract, no matter what then.
But in 300,
It's not 300. We got to take them piece by piece by piece.
Yes, we're still one at a time.
I have to take it piece by piece because I can't even conceptualize in my own head. So please, can we let's limit it to these 2 items
Yeah,
right now. It's the
that's fine.
25 for the break, which I think we can all justify as being, and the 75 for the four isolation valves, which are they're live insertion valves that we need to do. Because we now know, because of the break, that we can't isolate Elm Street coming into Main Street and Main Street coming back up from the Rotary. Those were not included in our design, and I agree with you, they weren't included in our design. The reason they weren't included in our design is because the water department, myself, the engineer, none of us thought we wouldn't be able to get an isolation that wouldn't involve, I know I could isolate the system, I don't want to say that. We could isolate Main Street and downtown. It just might put half the town out of water. And I don't think that's an acceptable solution. I will tell you that right now.
All
So
right, thank you.
we have to find an engineering solution to do it. The engineering solution is to put isolation valves in. I understand your concern that that seems like a lot of money. 4 valves at $75,000 to dig them, install them, which is a sub, to dig them, install them, and repave them, it's less than $20,000 a valve. That's actually not a bad price. That's actually a very good price, and that's the reason why I'm not concerned about it, because I think this is a fair price for the 75 for the isolation valves. It could have been included in the contract, but we didn't believe we needed it, so it's hard to always include things just in case, because again, the contractor's just going to want to work to that price.
So you're going to tell me when they come open the ground, they're not going to find anything extra? You're not going to come back from another extra money maybe
All
for
right.
found something, or
We
need
have to
extra
do
things?
these
That's
one
enough.
thing at a time.
Let's vote on this, okay? I think we've talked about this to death, so
So-
let's vote on this one, Counselor, and then when we get to the 75,000, you can bring up your questions about that, all right? Is that acceptable?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. We'll take a vote. Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Citizen Member Lazo?
Yes.
Citizen Member Bemis?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion passes 4-0. Agenda item number 10, discuss review the proposed transfer from account number 610-450-583-000-21581, Water Equipment Capital, to account number 610-450-583-000-21580, Water System Capital, for $24,342.18 to cover the cost of change order number 1. Entertain a motion to vote to recommend that council approve this transfer. Could I have a motion, please?
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Citizen Member Lazo, seconded by Councilor Dow. So this is to pay for the previous motion, so if you want to talk to it.
I try to make it really quick. So we have budgets. We kind of just went through the water system budget. I don't know, last week was that? You know, there's 5 different capital items. Equipment is one of them. This year's equipment budget had some equipment in it. After looking at it, and with COVID, we said, you know, we're not going to buy this year. We have some money here to be able to make sure we can cover the costs in the systems. So it's within our budget. We're using in-budget money, no loans, no anything. We're just, we know we have enough money there. You know, we put $5,000 for radios in every year. We won't buy the radios this year for replacement.
All right, thank you. Any questions from anyone? No?
No.
On this side? Anyone on the screen? Nope, all right, no questions, I have none. Roll call, Counselor Dow,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Citizen Member Lazo,
Yes.
Citizen Member Bemis,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. 4-0, motion passes, thank you. Agenda item number 11, discuss review change order number 2 from Lynch for the installation of 4 insertion valves to allow the new system to be connected to the old system and minimize the required water system shutdown area and time at a cost of $75,387.16. This change order will be funded by Project 64890, Main Street Valve Replacement and Improvements. Entertain a motion to vote to recommend that council approve this change order.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Lazo, Citizen Member Lazo, seconded by Councilor Dow. Okay, Heather?
So I know we kind of started talking about this. I think it's exactly what it said here in this request, is to minimize the time of the shutdown, to be able to isolate the water system, to be able to reconnect it. That it's for 4 valves, 2 6-inch, make sure I have the right size, 2 6-inch and 2 12-inch, and plus paving because it's outside the area of the construction. So it's not, we're doing these installations, they'll be up on Elm Street and they'll be down further on Main Street to isolate. So therefore, after the construction, the valve will still be a valuable valve for us. It will still isolate a section of the line that we previously couldn't isolate. It's not right at the end of the construction, so we also have to pay for the paving. So this is the digging, the installation, the subcontractor to do the isolation, these live insertion valves. These are not a standard valve. This is not the contractor bolting on a valve. This is a company coming in and lively inserting it into the main. I'll try to explain anything more question-wise.
All right, Councilor Catrona, I'll go to you
Thank you,
first.
Mr. Chairman, through you to speak to this. My point is not to place blame, my point is for accountability. And to think that, it's my opinion, and it's a poor assumption, to think that a valve that, I don't know how long it is, or how old it is, it could be 100 years old, we have no idea. But not to think that a valve is not going to hold. From an engineering standpoint, when you're putting together something like this, it's my opinion that it's just a poor assumption to think that a valve's not going to hold, knowing you have to do a shutdown. I'm not in favor of this when it comes to council. I won't support it. I think there should be some responsibility and accountability, and that's between the town manager and the engineer. Again, as some of my former councilors spoke, I agree. When you get into digging underground, sure, there's a lot of unforeseen circumstances, issues that might come up. This was foreseen. This could have been alleviated. This could have been, I lose my train of thought. This could have been protected, maybe that's a good terminology, or foreseen, but instead an assumption was made that the valve would hold. So it's my opinion that I think there should be some accountability and some responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lazo, did you have your hand up? Nope. Councilor Dow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to you. Heather, I'm going to support that, just because we need it for future incidents, for the valve need to be changed. And I respect Councilor Catrona, where he come from. That's something different. I think we need it. We should support it at that moment, because we need it to protect for any future accident or anything. But the whole idea tonight, why I'm talking and talking and talking for the next project we're going to go to, please be prepared for something like that. I think any valve should be checked before the ground open. If you think it's old and need to be changed, we should add them to the contract, because we like to have a new Southbridge, not half old, half a new, and then a couple of years down the road, we need to change them. We're going to dig the road again, with another hole, another patch. So please, in the future, make sure.
All the valves in the contract area are being changed and were already designed to be changed.
Thank you.
We were already planning on that. These are valves that were out, the isolation valves are outside of the contract area. I want to address the assumption of whether we thought they were going to hold or not. And I understand where you're coming from, because I agree. They're 100-year-old valves. We should have maybe thought maybe they weren't going to hold. Many more valves held that night that were also the same age. So more valves held because we were able to isolate big parts of the system. We were able to isolate it from Central Street, from Foster Street, from Everett Street, from Chapin Street, coming down Main Street. All of those areas we were able to isolate. So you have a lot of pipes coming in. More valves held than didn't hold. So it's very difficult to say you should assume they're all not going to hold and just be ready to install insertion valves everywhere, because that would have been an even bigger. If I assumed we were going to need an insertion valve, and a live insertion valve at every intersection on this project, for every main on this project, that's not what you're saying? Because I need to know that. I do need to know that. Do I just put 1 or 2 in as a safety?
Mr. Chair,
Hold on.
Because
Counselor Dow asked the question, and then I'll let Counselor Catrona answer your other
I
question.
think I think you have to think about it that way. That means I need 2 valves at Marcy Street, no, 4 valves at Marcy Street. I need 4 valves at Elm Street. You know, it starts to get to be a lot, and that's a very expensive proposition. Now, if you tell me, well, maybe you should have had one just in there just in case, I can understand that, and that can be something that's discussed. And maybe it was missed in the contract. But because it was missed in the contract doesn't mean we don't need it, and we don't need to pay the contractor for it. And you can't say that was an egregious miss by the engineer, in my opinion.
Counselor Dow,
thank you,
did you want to follow up? Yep.
we need a new Southbridge. Enough is enough. Too much cost, we don't have money, we can't do this, is enough. We need a new Southbridge. You open the road, change them, put them in a budget. We can look at it, we can see what we can do, but put them out completely and then wait to the last minute. We need him now, I need $500,000 or 75 or $10, that's not acceptable. Regarding how many valves you need, or 1 or million, this should be added to the contract, and then we will discuss it. You open the road, you're doing everything new, you should have everything new. You want one valve 100 years old and one
No.
today? So it doesn't matter if you
Hold
have
on.
6 on the road or 1. When you open the road, you're changing everything under it. I think it should be
We are.
under consideration for
Hold on.
any. Thank you, that's all.
I'll let you answer that, Heather, if you'd like.
I don't want to give the impression that we're not changing all the valves. We are in the project area. These are outside of what originally was the scope of the project, and they're only having to be done because we can't isolate it. So it's not, you're right, we should change things when they're old and replace them. We have to make decisions based on useful life, and we make that decision all the time. I get that. I completely agree with you. These are valves inside the project area. These are valves outside of where we're working. I hope that makes, I'm not trying to justify it here, but I want you to understand that they weren't part of the design because they weren't in the original project area. Now, putting one in as a safety, I can understand that. You know, we have a 100-year-old system. In the future, yeah, we should have isolation, one just in case we need it, so we have a price on it. But again, I know how much these cost. I've had to do these in the past. The price that they're giving us is very reasonable. We wouldn't have gotten any different price if we had put it in the contract. This is a reasonable price.
All right, thank you, Heather. Counselor Catrona, I will let you respond if you want.
I'm all set till we get to the
All right,
council floor.
thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor,
I just
Citizen
want
member.
to say, Heather, we own these insertion valves now, and they're in place, and we can use them?
This is a proposed change order.
Okay, proposed. So,
Correct. We haven't done this work yet. This is work that needs to
but
be
this
done.
will be done if we vote this, correct?
Yes,
Okay. With these valves, it's safer for the town to have these in there?
Correct.
Are you saying that?
yes.
Okay. With that said, I will support this.
Thank you. Counselor Steves first, and then Ms.
Thank you,
Bemis.
Mr. Chairman. Through you to Heather, the one question that I have is, what kind of condition are you looking at as far as the pipes in the areas that you're going to be putting in these insertion valves? Because, I mean, if we found issues like the tuberculation issue we were talking about a while back here, what kind of shape are the pipes in now, where they're going?
Well, these insertion valves are going on old lines, so we can
Yeah.
expect that we're going to see tuberculation in these old lines also, which does make it more difficult to put these valves in. But we were successful in that 6-inch line already. That was one of the worst lines I've seen in town. So we are hopeful that, you know, we will have a successful installation, so.
You all set,
Okay.
Counselor?
Obviously, hopefully, yeah. Okay.
You're all set, Counselor?
Yep.
Ms. Bemis?
I think, just to clarify, it sounds like you're doing what Councilman Dow wanted you to do, in the sense that these valves are outside of the project area. Am I understanding that right? These were never even considered because it has nothing to do with what you're presently doing, but they were found during the process of trying to shut down certain lines or isolate lines. Am I understanding that right?
You're 100% correct.
So in fact, you're doing what was asked of you in the sense that you found a problem unrelated to the project, but was discovered because of the project, and you're asking us to replace those now that you know about them. So you're doing exactly what you're being asked to do.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, thank you. If there's no other questions, Vice Chairman Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Can you give me a sense as to the linear distance between the project and where these valves are going? Some sense?
I haven't actually, I know when we were talking about Main Street, that we were talking about putting them down closer to Dresser Park,
Okay.
where the monument was. And on Elm Street, I'm not exactly sure where on Elm Street they're going to try to insert them, but they have a location that I picked out. They haven't reviewed it with me.
Okay. And in your estimation, I mean, approximately, you're talking a dozen insertion valves if you did everything?
Oh, probably more.
All right. At 18?
It would have to be at every intersection, and most intersections have two mains that go to them because of this dual main system. If we were replacing all of them with live insertion valves, it would be more. So you're talking South Street, two sides of Marcy Street, Chapin Street, Goddard Street, Hamilton Street, Central Street, Elm Street, Everett Street, Foster Street, and the connections at South Street and there, so.
Okay, at 18.7 a pop.
At $20,000 pop.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, Councilor Raza.
Just a quick, I have no debate of what anybody said tonight. It's all worthy words to be used in the future, I guess. But this money is good money spent on these valves for what it does to the system and for what we can do in other times when we have to shut something down. I think this is something that should have been done, should have been figured, whatever. But as far as the agenda item in front of us, that's a definite yes. You should vote for this.
All right, thank you. We'll take a vote then. Councilor Dow?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Citizen Member Lazo?
Yes.
Citizen Member Bemis?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Agenda item number 12, discuss review the proposed transfer from account number 610450-583000-91250 Water Capital Reserve to project 64890 Main Street Valve and Replacement and Improvements for $75,387.16 to cover the cost of change order number 2. Entertain a motion to vote to recommend that council approve this transfer.
So moved.
Motion made by Citizen Member Lazo, seconded by Councilor Dow. Heather, did you want to say anything on
I'll
this one?
just say really quickly, so we're proposing to take this out of capital reserve. There's still $96,000 in water capital reserve. This will allow us to take it out of in-budget funds, we'll move it to the project. Capital reserve is just that. It's there in case we have an unforeseen circumstance that we need additional funding. So we do have this as a funding source. It's not going to increase anybody's taxes or water fees or anything because it's in our budget. And we've had the conversation in the past that I'd like to spend as much of our water system budget as we possibly can so that we're not giving any of it to Charlton. I'll
All right.
remind you, I guess.
Thank you. Any questions, anyone?
Nope.
Anyone on the screen? Ms. Bemis, Councilor Steves? All right, thank you. We'll take a vote then. Councilor Dow?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Citizen Member Lazo?
Yes.
Citizen Member Bemis?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Agenda item number 13, discuss review the proposed transfer from project 63720 FY16 reservoir flashboard replacement $87,886.03 remaining funds, and Project 63680 Mass Avenue Check Valve Replacement, $75,000 remaining funds, to Project 64890 Main Street Valve Replacement and Improvements in the amount of $162,806.03. Entertaining a motion to recommend that council approve this transfer. Could I have a
So-
motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Citizen Lazo and seconded by Councilor Dow. Heather?
So I guess we're kind of doing this a little backwards here, but no matter what, I would want these monies transferred into this project, so it's okay. I'll explain why. Both of these projects were water system projects. The flashboard replacement's completely been done. The estimate that we had originally of what it was going to cost was a lot higher. We were able to do it a lot more effectively by, I don't know, just by when we went out to quotes. We thought it was going to be much more expensive. We thought we were going to have to go out for a much bigger job. When we actually were able to read the way that it was designed to be done, it was able to be done much more cost effectively. So therefore, there's a nice large pot of money left over. The project's all done. We're able to revert these funds into another project. And that's why we think the Main Street project with these upcoming costs is what we should divert it for. The $75,000 for the Mass Ave check valves was a project that when we still had the Mass Ave pump station was slated to be done. It turned out when we kind of delayed the project because the Mass Ave pump station has now been decommissioned as part of the upgrade to the 169 station. This money just never was turned back on the project. It was still there, just sitting there. And so we would like to redirect those funds into this Main Street project, as opposed, we would normally just turn it over and it would go into potentially certified retained earnings, but we don't want to do that. Let's spend it on our water system, where it was supposed to be spent underground anyways.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Any questions from, all right, Councilor Steves? I just have one question. I don't really understand. Explain to me this transfer, because is this a combination of other projects, of all the projects here? Which projects?
It's just the two projects that are mentioned there. It's a combination of the flashboard, the $87,863 remaining funds,
Right.
and the Mass Ave check valve replacing the 75. So we're adding those two projects together and redirecting those funds to the Main Street valve replacement project.
So you're just putting that in there. This isn't to cover any of the brakes or the
Nope.
valve replacement?
Nope.
You're just putting some extra
We're
money in there?
putting the money in there so that the next three change orders can be covered.
The next three?
Yes.
Because I added up the next three.
They equal more. We still have money in the project that hadn't been designated.
That explains it. Thank you.
Yes.
Yep. All right. That answers my question. Thank you.
This money plus, I think there's like 25 grand or something still in there. There's still enough money in that project because of the contract values.
All right. Thank you. All right, if there are no other questions or comments, we'll take a vote. Councilor Dow?
Yes.
Councilor Steves?
Yes.
Citizen Member Bemis?
Yes.
Citizen Member Lazo?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Agenda item number 14, discuss review change order number 3 from Lynch for the cost of additional work items required to address unforeseen underground field conditions in the amount of $30,275.34. This change order will be funded from Project 64890, Main Street Valve Replacement and Improvements. Entertain a motion to vote to recommend that council approve this change order. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Citizen Lazo, seconded by Councilor Dow. All right, Heather.
Okay, so we've talked briefly about one of these items. So there's 5 items on here. Insulated pipe. So I'm going to take them one at a time. When we got to Nuisance Brook and we got to where the area was, we determined that we had to bury the new water main shallower than what we would normally like to bury it. We always want it to be at least 4.5 feet down. Because the height of the existing culvert was so shallow, we had to come up, and when we came up with that, we used insulated pipe. So this is a change order for the cost of that insulated pipe to be able to make sure that we don't have any freezing problems going over the culvert. The second one was installation of a 4-inch, and it's actually just a 4-inch valve. This is up next to wells. They put in a T and a 4-inch valve so that they can connect to, for their new lateral to the new revamped school. So they put it in their mind, they had to do it while they were putting the pipe in, so therefore this is the cost for that valve. We didn't know what size they were going to need there, so the 4-inch isn't one of the items that's in the contract, so that's why they had to charge us for it this way. Treated wood disposal, this is the treated wood that they found in Main Street. They've already found all that they're going to find, hopefully. If we find more, I don't know where we're going to find it, but because we've kind of dug everywhere at this point, but they had to remove it. They stockpiled it. They said they'll stockpile it and get a price. This is the price for that disposal and the removal. There's one brick culvert that they've encountered near Chapin Street. In order to, it's not active. We have new concrete, but it's still in the ground. But they have to break through it and seal up the two sides and go through it. This is one of those very, I'll take pictures of this because it's very interesting. It's a large, looks like it's an underground cistern. It actually is labeled that. We found an old plan that doesn't show any pipes going to it. I'm like, well, how does it get filled? But we tried to pump it out. I had our truck go up there one day, our pump truck, and pump it out, and it just kept on filling. So they're going to break through the tops, reseal it, and lay the pipe through it because we couldn't get clearance. We would literally hit too many other things, so we have to kind of go right through the middle of it. That hasn't been done because they're waiting for that change order to come. And then there's another piece of insulated pipe that we had to install because we were too close to another pipe to go up further.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Questions, anyone? Councilor Dow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To you, if you go through the paper on page straight, JIC, it's what, January 25, 2021, and if you go down, say price listed below valid for 30 days. So that's
It's still valid. Their prices are still valid.
You know, 2 months later, 3 months later, you know.
They submit these, so what you're seeing is they submit those letters that are on Lynch's to the engineer. The engineer says, okay, you know, we've already told them the insulated pipe, I don't stop the work. I can't stop the work.
So it's already done, the work.
The work's already done.
Thank you.
Can I stop the work, Scott?
Get it done.
Because 4 months later, you know, prices change, you know.
Yeah.
No, the price
So-
hasn't changed. They're
So
good with these prices.
By giving the okay, the town manager allowed that, he's approving those work to be done at that time?
As I said, at the time, we had that negative $100,000 going. We knew we were running into these issues, and we know we're going to. I always, on my projects, we have to bundle these things together, but I can't stop the work. I couldn't stop the work for 2 weeks and say, oh no, you got to stop right there. You can't keep putting a pipe in. I have to make an engineering judgment
Why-
and hope that you're going to agree with me.
Why we don't request an emergency meeting for the DPW? I mean, why you submit it now? It's already done. There's no need for us now. It's already done, you know? Just thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Any questions? Councilor Steves, Ms. Bemis? No? Thank you. We'll take a vote then. Roll call, Councilor Dow,
Yes.
Councilor Steves,
Yes.
Ms. Bemis,
Yes.
Citizen Member Lazo,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Agenda item number 15, discuss review change order number 4 from Lynch for the known increases in contract quantities and included one deduct for removal of the 6-inch water main for an increase of $24,194.24. This change order will be funded by Project 64890, Main Street Valve Replacement and Improvements, and entertain a motion to council to approve change order.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Lazo, seconded by Dow. Heather?
So this is a plus-minus change order based on contract quantities. I usually like to wait to the end of the contract to do these because there are always things, we will have more deducts before we're done. And it usually is a balancing change order at the end. But we were getting to the point where we weren't negative anymore, so we wanted to bring this to you now. I've talked about the deduct. At the time, even with the insulated pipe, I was hoping to cover it all then. Things definitely changed. Contract quantities have been increased. These are the quantities, I think, as of the last pay rec. The engineer would probably be able to speak to that better than I do, but they're all at the contract price. They haven't asked for any increases because of quantity increases or anything. They're all just at the contract prices. So we always pay based on actual installation. The values that are in the contracts are estimated values. They're not actual values. They always could go up or down. So these are now actual values to a date.
Thank you. Any questions?
One question.
Question, Counselor Dow.
Is that already done too?
Yes, it's
Okay.
already done.
Thank you.
Counselor
Just to know
Steves?
what I'm here for, that's all, you know?
Counselor
You still have
Steves?
to prove it.
That's it, no question.
Ms. Bemis? Any questions? No? All right,
Mr. Chairman, just a quick comment.
Counselor Dow, or Lazo.
The reason why we're here is because you can't expend any money without your vote. And I do understand that the work has to get done. The one thing I like what is being said is, don't stop the work. By ripping the streets open, there's a high liability, you got a lot of issues in the street. Heather, you know, I know the streets are in rough shape, but town wants them fixed. Blow them up, fix them, do whatever we have to do, because when Main Street's done, it'll be a role model Main Street in New England. I think we'll all be satisfied, but if you don't vote for it, we can't pay the bills.
Right, thank you. Counselor Dow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. The job is already done. You have to pay them, or they will put a lien on the town of Southbridge. I think we have more thing important to look for it. I think this is just, I'm gonna say it, I'm sorry, wasting of time, because our time too, for something else will be more important, because this item already done. Doesn't matter if we say yes or no, they need to get paid. We can put something else more important is not done yet. We can talk about it in town and need to be done. This is my opinion. You open the road and need to be done. I agree with you. You finish the job. I think this is waste of time of us because they need to get paid. We're not changing anything. We can't do anything different. I think we can put different item on the meeting, not done yet, to move forward faster in the town and improve the town better. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you.
Just one quick comment. It's the law that we have to vote this to subcommittee and take it to council to pay the bill. It doesn't get paid. Thank you.
Counselor Catrona?
I'm all set. No?
Thank you. All right, thank you. We'll take a vote on this then. Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Ms. Bemis?
Yes.
Mr. Lazo?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. 4-0, motion passes. Agenda item number 16. Discuss review change order number 5 for Lynch for water service lateral costs for 2-inch service and 1.5-inch services not included in original contract and additional 1-inch service over the contract quantities with a deduction for 8 1-inch services not being installed at the cost of $108,726.75. This change order will be funded by project 64890 Main Street Valve Replacement and Improvements. Entertain a motion to vote to recommend
So
council
moved.
approve this change order.
Okay, this one hasn't been done yet.
Motion made by Mr. Lazo, seconded by Dow.
Just for good, sorry about that.
Okay,
So,
Heather?
I know, I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to start. There was no item for an 1.5 inch or a 2 inch service in our contract. We have existing 1.5 inch and 2 inch services to some of the buildings. So we should not, it would be not recommended to reduce their service size to an inch service, which is what the contract values were. So I'm coming to you because I do think it's important that we replace the existing services with what the size services that are there. In addition, we did contact some of the commercial businesses because obviously some of them might benefit for having a bigger service. And I gave them the opportunity to upgrade their service by paying a new connection fee and upgrading from their 1 inch service to a 2 inch service. I had multiple businesses that were interested. To date, one of them has paid and will be getting a 2 inch service. And a second business has indicated that they want to, but they have an existing water bill and they have to pay their water bill off before we're going to give them the bigger service. That one of those 2 inch services is not reflected in that second one that they haven't paid their water bill is not reflected in this change order, just to make note. So there would be an additional one here. But there are 2 inch services going to CVS, to the LaSalle Hall, to, I probably won't remember all of them off the top of my head anymore, but it does account to like 5 plus a couple new ones. I do think it's important. Now I know what the question's going to be. Why didn't the engineer get it? I don't know. He were provided with the line cards of what the existing services were. I believe when we did the design, because that's our standard practice, is here's the information that we have. Is it very confusing on some of those cards? Absolutely. I mean, if you look at some of them, they're very messy. Was it missed? Absolutely. It was missed by me, it was missed by the water department, and it was missed by the engineer. I'm not going to say it wasn't missed. But it is necessary, so I hope we can look for the benefit of the businesses in the community that we need to do this. We can't reduce the size of their services just because it was on the engineering plans. It was missed.
All right, thank you. Councilor Catrona?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Thank you for the explanation, Heather, and for being up front. As I spoke before on the insertion valves, and I'll say it again, I think at some point, and I'll go back to the sewer treatment plant, when we had to change the doors after the fact to get a bigger tank through the doors because it was poor planning on the engineer part. And now we're back there again. We have an engineer that did a job, but did he, or did they? They missed something, again, in my opinion. And we're paying for it because they missed it. I think, again, the town manager should have conversation with them, and we should not be paying this bill. I agree the work has to get done, but if they miss something, it's not on us. We paid them to do a job, and they missed something. And it's happening time and time again where we come back for change order, because the engineers missed something. And I've seen it in my almost 2 years of being on council multiple times. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Steves? Ms. Bemis? Did the engineer want to speak to this?
He's
Yeah,
on.
This is Greg Russell with VHB. I am the project manager for VHB. We do a lot of work in town, and I do want to say, as Heather definitely pointed out to us, and we definitely missed this piece. We have the tie cards. There was a change in design and kind of the way we were designing it, and we did miss this part at the very end of it. So that's definitely our was definitely our mistake. That being said, I will say, we had estimated this project, about $600,000 more than what it came in at. So, all in all, I agree we made a mistake, and we've done our best to try and rectify that through working with the contractor and working with DPW to try and mitigate any of the other issues.
All right, thank you. Anything else, Counselor Steve, or Mr. Lazo?
Through you to Heather. Heather, all these lines here, these were, you had to connect to them anyways. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
And so you're offering them bigger lines, which is a good thing. Do it now before something else happens. And if this isn't voted, does this work stop?
Yes.
Okay, you answered my question. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Counselor Dow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for you. So they allow him in the future, if the law change, if they want to add a sprinkler system to the building, is that what, 4 bigger line?
So
Or that's different?
sprinklers, most of the facilities, there's already 6-inch lines being extended to a lot of the buildings. Not all of them, some of them. Some of them already have it. So we paid the 6-inch extensions. There was a line item for additional quantities for the 6-inch extensions. The lot, so 2 properties that are in construction have asked for sprinkler lines because they knew they were getting upgraded. So that would be the empty lot. They're getting a 6-inch sprinkler line to the basically edge of the property or the
Can I know those property address, please?
and the other one was right next door to the little blue building that was part of the fire too. They're getting a sprinkler line because of the upgrades. Not every building's getting a sprinkler line. Not everybody wants a sprinkler line.
So that lot, it's, you're saying next to, before Center Street on the left?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So the whole idea for those 2 buildings only, the change?
They're getting them. The existing sprinkler lines are all being connected. Everybody could have.
So I know the road is open, and you guys working on the sewer and water, whatever, but it's not fair for other residents when they want to add a sprinkler system on the building, they have to pay $6,000 connection fee.
They're
to
going to
just-
have
to
to pay
just-
connection fees too. They're both paying connection fees for those new
If they're
ones.
paying the fee,
Yep.
we will understand they save some money on the contractor to open the road
Right.
is already there.
Yep. They're having to pay the
But
fees.
if they're gonna, the town, take
And as
all
soon
the
as-
hit, I don't think it's fair for
Let 'em
other
finish.
residents paying connect fee and contractors and do all this work, and just we're gonna change, and be responsible for a few buildings wanna come up and coming up in town, to added extra cost on the town for a few, a lot, it's gonna go up and building on.
So they are required to pay connection fees.
Okay.
They are paying connection fees for those 2 lines. We also have existing sprinkler lines that we're having to connect into. Anybody who upgraded, they all were asked. Everybody in downtown was asked what they wanted, and they were given options. They understood that they'd have to pay the connection fee to be able to upgrade that line.
So that line is gonna go to the sidewalk?
To the sidewalk.
Who's responsible for the sidewalk? to
From the
be-
curb stop in is the responsible of the property owner.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Catrona?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, just to reiterate something I said earlier, I'm not saying to stop the project, as it was possibly alluded to earlier. We go forward with the project, but what I'd like to see is our town manager have conversation with the engineer for the oversight and possibly look for some type of reimbursement. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Lazo?
Yeah, You answered my question. It was a question that I knew the answer to, but the town owns from the main to the shut-off, which we knew, and they're paying a connection fee. So what we're doing is, we're putting these laterals in?
No, we're putting from the main to the shut-off.
To the
That's it.
shut-off, that's
Then the owner is going to have to
There-
connect from the lateral in. If there's an existing connection and we're just changing it over, we're just reconnecting with a coupling to their
Right,
existing
right.
lateral. And in the future, like any of the ones, Southbridge Savings Bank, their old building that they used to be in, is one of the ones that is getting upgraded. So
Now-
then they will have the ability to upgrade that building in the future.
Now, say these upgrades don't take place, is there an old line already there?
Then we would have to put a 1-inch line in. But some of these, there's only 2 that are getting upgraded. Some of them already have 2-inch lines. CVS is a 2-inch, LaSalle is a 2-inch.
The newer buildings.
We would be connecting a 1-inch to their 2-inch, they would not get as much flow as they already got. So we would, that's the issue there.
In some of these buildings, you're giving bigger volume,
Yes,
and we're in the business of selling water,
yes.
and we make money selling our water with a bigger line. And nothing more aggravating than when you do a road job, like Dresser Street, you did a great job, the bridge, everything's done, and then Boston Gas goes in and cuts right through the brand-new street. So to me, I think replacing these and replacing everything that's old is to prevent anybody from going back in the street because everything would be new. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Dow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I agree with Council Lazo regarding come back and do the street, but it's like the state that put a road on Worcester Street. You can't dig the road for 5 years. So if somebody is planning to upgrade or do a new project on Main Street, they should be responsible to get ready for the water if they want a sprinkler system or water line for the future to be able to maintain the property or whatever. But I don't think they should be the taxpayer paying for somebody trying to take half a free ride. Let's put it that way. And I don't blame the engineer, or I don't blame the town manager or Heather. This has come up maybe after the budget, the project was happened. This has came up recently, just trying to do it. So I don't want to put any blame on anybody. Let's be fair and say the truth the way it is. I'm not going to go more far. I think I'm very clear what I say so far. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Counselor Lazo?
Unless I'm misunderstanding something, we're going to sell more water through these new lines that we're putting in. And we're going to own these lines that we're putting in. I don't know where anybody's getting a free ride when they're putting it from the shut-off to the main. We own it. We enlarge it, we sell more water. There was a gentleman when we bought the water company, his name was Chet Spievogel. He said, you're in the water business. Sell your water, enlarge the lines, and make money. That's what he told me back then, and he's since passed, and I look at it as one of these deals as, this is good for the town. And I don't look at the businesses on Main Street getting a free ride because they're going to pay from the shut-off to the building anyways. So, just my opinion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have anything? Counselor Dow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. When I put the sprinkler system in Average Street, I have to pay from the main line to the building. Nobody give me any shut-off valve before or after. The law requires sprinkler system in 3 family or businesses, certain square footage or size of a pipe, 1 inch or 2 inch. So this is a requirement. It's not like they have to. Sooner or later, they want to open a business or build something, they have to meet the requirement. I understand now because the road is open, the work should be done, but I don't think the town should be paid for any of these. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to have a roll call. Mr. Manager, did you want to respond to something? I thought I saw you. Okay, thank you. We'll have a roll call then.
On move that, approve or forward, what's the call we're going to make?
The motion is to entertain a motion to recommend that our council approve this change order. That was the motion. Okay? Good? We're all good? All right. Counselor Dow?
No.
Counselor Steves? Counselor Steves? You're muted.
Mike?
Yes.
Ms. Bemis?
Yes.
Mr. Lazo?
Yes.
And I'm a no. Motion passes 3-2. Thank you. So now we're on agenda item number 17. Doing that. This is to discuss the update on road improvements, bidding timeline, bids that have gone out, received, if any, types of treatments proposed, and the roads to be worked on. I tried to be as specific as I could. Yeah, you might have some other things too that you want to add to this.
So the first thing I just wanted to go over is we had a two-phase approach for our pavement management program this year. I'm just going to review it. So the first phase, the two different phases are pavement preservation and milling and overlay. So we had pavement preservation, which is the crack sealing, your fog sealing, and your micro surfacing. Those were the three treatments that we selected to do. That bid has been out. The bids were received today. We had estimated, we thought it was going to be about $500,000 worth of work for the description of the roads that we had, which is quite lengthy. I'm not going to list them all here because it's quite lengthy. The bid came in, well, let me back up. So that is one section. We bid that out as one group because they kind of go together. The same type of companies do it. The second one is our mill and overlay. We believe there's about $1 million worth of work there for 2-inch mill and overlays. We have a list of streets, which I do have, and I believe they have been provided to you guys in the past. I will just read a few of these. Bruce Lane, Clements Hill, Dudley River Road, Harding Court, sections of High Street, sections of Highland Street, Janet, Judith, Mary Ellen Lane, Morris Street, Orchard, Page, Poplar, Prospect, Taft, Woody Crest, and Worcester. Some of them have work that are still going on. Worcester Street, where we're looking to do, still has work by National Grid going on, so that would probably happen later in the year. But that is the bid that we're currently putting together. It will include limited installation of deep sump catch basins. We'll have a quantity in there, and we'll identify which roads that we want them done on. We'll include structure adjustments if we need them. So it will have an item also for full depth patching in case there's one section of the road that really needs to be excavated out and full depth patched. So that will be our mill and overlay bid. That's currently being prepared. So I did say that our pavement preservation's just bid. We just received the bids. We only received one bid. It was for the total amount of $606,000 and $606,150. We're still reviewing it. Our initial, it just came in today at 2 o'clock, so our initial review is some of the prices are higher than what we expected. They're not overly higher than what we expected. We can keep that cost to $500,000 and see where we are. It will just mean a few less roads will get done. It's a per gallon price for the crack sealing, so it's just going to be, we had to make an estimate of how far it would go based on what we had done in the past. It might go further. We might be able to do all the streets. It might come in less. We pay by the gallon there. We pay by the square yard for everything else. So we can always control how much is done. If we only have $500,000, we'll stay within that $500,000 because that's all we're going to authorize to do. Make sense? So you'll see that coming in front of you to subcommittee in a couple weeks, hopefully to have the contract awarded May 25th. So that's the proposed time frame for that. Mill and overlay. The documents are being prepared to be advertised May 19th. Has to go into Combi, Central Registry, in the newspaper. Has to be in for a minimum of 2 weeks. We're looking at bids being due on June 8th, which is a Tuesday. Have a subcommittee meeting for the week of June 21st to 24th, with the contract being awarded, with coming to council on the 28th and the contract being awarded the following day. So that is the time frame we're looking there. The pavement preservation is actually a whole year. So let's talk about when are we going to do the work, right? So we're going to award it, when is it going to get done? So the contract preservation contract is actually a year contract from the start of the award with 2-year optional renewals. So even next year, if we put more money in, we have more streets that we want to fog seal, or we decide we're not going to microsurface this year because we don't have the money, we're just going to do the other 2 treatments, and we have more money next year that we want to put in, we can renew this contract for another 2 years, 2 more 1-year renewals. So we don't have to go back out to bid, we'll be able to start right up, we'll order them to do this street, and therefore it'd be done. There are temperature limitations for these work to be done anyways. It has to be above, can't have it ever going below 45 degrees, or they don't want to do the work. So we're just getting into their sweet spot. It's been a little too cold for them even to start work now. So you're looking at May, June, July, August, depending on what we order and when we order them. And then again, in the fall, they can't, there's a limit of when they can do that work. Mill and overlay, I've talked about, you know, it still also has temperature limitations of when you want to put it down. We could start doing mill and overlay work right now, but we'll get it out so that we're going to start in June. It will have likely to occur in July through October of this year.
All right, thank you.
Is that kind
That's
of give
good.
you?
That's good. That was a good presentation. Councilor Lazo.
I'm sorry, I couldn't
Just
share
a
it.
quick question. What happened to Gulfwood Road?
Gulfwood Road was never decided to be a mill and overlay project. Gulfwood Road is a major reconstruction.
Oh.
So that wasn't included on our paving plan this year because we are not doing any major reconstruction projects.
I know it got bumped. I just didn't know it'd been bumped a couple of times, I think, or maybe once
Yes.
or twice. But that was before I got on, and then I heard it got bumped again. I was like, I was talking to the gentleman with the fluorescent hat about it.
Is that it, Councilor? Mr. Lazo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Heather. Heather, I was under the impression that there was funding for that project, and when the Mill Street Bridge came up, you were going to try and take that money and put it toward the bridge to secure it. What happened
So
to that money on Gulfwood?
That was Chapter 90 money.
Yep.
And yes, the question was asked earlier tonight, how much money do we have in Chapter 90? There's a potential, but we would have to do, that project requires a full design because where we're starting is at the end of Gulfwood where the turnaround is going to be responsible. So it needs to be surveyed and there probably has to be a take-in and some other work that needs to be done in there. It's not a simple mill and overlay project that I'm going to put out internal
Yeah,
from my
it's not-
office.
It's not that.
It's definitely a much more major project. The whole way from Torrey North, or whatever direction, I guess
All the way
that's
to the end.
to the end.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a project that I agree in concept totally needs to be done. But the direction that I was directed by the town manager and council was get these roads done. This is a lot of work just for us to oversee and do. So therefore that project got pushed back because it wasn't the direction that council directed me.
So with that said, I'm not going to hold you to it, but when will that be brought back up?
I think next year, we're going to have to look and see what is the highest priority. And at some point, we're going to have to do some full reconstructions. We have a lot of projects coming up this year. You know, Main Street is
Yep.
still in 100% construction. I just told you South Street's out on the streets to bid. That's another major project that I'm going to have 2 roads in town completely ripped up. People are going to be ready to hang me, I think. But, you know, it is good that they're getting done. So those are 2 of our worst roads. I'm happy that they're going to get done because it only, you know,
You're
that's,
not the only one.
they need to
Everybody
be
in
done.
town is.
You know, and then we've already awarded the design for West Street. So West Street's coming up following right behind it. So we'll be doing those major construction projects.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Lazo.
On Gulfwood Road, I know you said they want to create a cul-de-sac. can that project be split where there's a grind and pave? I mean, or overlay, or whatever you want to, whatever they figure to do?
Well, I
Because
think,
Gulfwood Road doesn't have any real big, like, structures and...
no, the good news is it doesn't have really big structures, but when you go up onto that road and see what the problems are with that road, is that it's built right on top of ledge. So, in sections, some of it's raised, so that helps, but it's a full reconstruction. When you look at the rankings on that road, it's in such bad condition, it needs full reconstruction. The drainage needs to be redirected on the sides. You know, the whole thing needs to be rebuilt. So we could put a Band-Aid on it and put a mill and overlaid. It will just deteriorate in the next 5 years and have to be reconstructed.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Anyone else? Counselor Steves?
Yeah, the one quick question I had is that I thought I heard you say, Heather, during your mill and overlay list that one of them was Prospect Street. I thought we just did Prospect Street.
You know what, you're correct. Prospect is done. This list was developed when we were still in, this is back from March, so yes, it is done.
Okay, so is there anything else that could be Prospect Street?
I think,
come on, Brandon, that we could replace with?
I think at this point, we should just get the bid out and find out what the cost is, and if we have enough money, then we will add to the list.
Thank you.
I remember a couple of weeks back, I emailed you about Trailside. Would that be a mill and overlay, or is that full depth reconstruction?
I believe that's full depth reconstruction.
Does that have any services in it? I think it does, doesn't it?
Yes, it has water and sewer. too.
Because I remember when you commented on it, that you had noted that South Street was, from the point system, more important. But I was thinking that that particular street, even though it's relatively minor in terms of the number of people that use it, it's a one-way exit. Anybody up there can't get out if they can't use Trailside. Whereas people using South Street, Old South Road, I mean, can go around by way of either end of Denison. So I was thinking that that road probably should be a somewhat higher priority. I don't know, obviously it's not on this list right now, but I just thought I'd bring it, I just thought I'd mention it for future consideration.
I think it can be looked at future projects, but when we're out in South Street to doing water mains, the idea of doing Old South right where we're there becomes much more cost effective. And we're going to have to find, you know, we're not committed to doing Old South right now either, because we have to see where those project costs are going to come in too, because the estimates are quite high. So I think when we get those estimates, we're going to have some conversations about whether we're doing, Old South is going out as an ad alternate, so that we can make a decision whether we can afford to do it or not.
Oh, sure, and that makes sense. I totally understand that tying that into South Street makes perfect good sense, but, okay.
Thank you, Counselor. Ms. Bemis, any questions? No questions? Anybody else?
No.
I just have a couple of questions. When you're doing these projects like crack seal, that's they just go around with that tar and it looks like an abstract painting all over
Yes,
town.
that's exactly what that is.
So they're not going to be filling in potholes or anything like that?
No.
No?
Crack sealing, and that's why the roads that it's being done on are not the roads that have a lot of potholes or anything like that. The one reason why we are putting in the mill and overlay a full depth patching spec or item is so that any of the roads that we are looking to do a fog seal that might have one bad spot in it, we'll be able to have the other contractor go in, fix that bad spot before we do the fog seal on that road. So we are planning to do that, but that's not the point of the crack sealing. So we've crack sealed before in town. One really good street to go and look at what crack sealing has actually helped us and preserved is Pleasant Street. Pleasant Street was crack sealed it was one of the first roads that we crack sealed when I was here, so it's been 4 or 5 years. And actually crack sealing helps prevent potholes from forming. That's why we do it. When you start to see the cracks, you want to seal the cracks so the water doesn't get in there and pop the rest of the road. That's what causes the potholes. But if a road already has too many potholes in it, crack sealing is not going to help it.
Right.
The fog seal is so we had a discussion about how to describe this today. The fog seal is it's like putting the tar on your driveway. It's a sprayed-on application. It helps so that the roads, you might see, some of the roads are getting very white, even though they're in really good shape, they're getting to be a white in color. That's because all of the asphalt that's in the tar has oxidized off. The new tar, there's some things that they've done with it that makes it that doesn't last as long as what we used to remember as paved asphalt. It doesn't have as much asphalt in it. It has more. So it has more different parts in it. So by putting this fog seal over it, it kind of gets that seal back in it so that it doesn't deteriorate and it doesn't oxidize. The oxidation also breaks it up and causes the potholes. When you do the micro surfacing, it's like a squeegee going over it. So it's not just a spray application, it's a thicker coat application. It costs more, but it gives it even a thicker border and kind of might make it feel like a little smoother because it does have a little thickness in it.
But except for that one, the other ones aren't going to do much for the bumps and the heaves.
No.
Because that's probably...
And that's why they're on roads that don't need it. And that's why we use the pavement management report.
Almost every road needs it, I think.
Well, they're roads that are in a better condition, but we're trying to keep them in better condition
No, I
and
understand.
not have that.
I
And then when
understand
you
that.
mill and overlay, it does get smooth like we've done in other projects.
I understand this was the plan. I mean, we tried to put some roads together, but this is the plan that came back for the councilors to vote on. And then the overlay, the 2-inch, that would take care of all the bumps and the heaves and the potholes. But these three here, you're going to probably start in May or June, sometime in June.
Yes.
And then the overlay, you're not expecting to start that, did you say, almost into July?
Well, because we're still in the bidding process. By the time, it will be June 25th before it comes to you.
Right.
So we're talking July before, the contractors are busy.
Right. I mean,
It's going to be where we can get onto their schedule. We can't say, okay, you're awarded it, I want you here tomorrow. It's not going to work that way.
Well,
We want a
hopefully-
good price, we're going to have to give them a little leeway and have them fit into our schedule.
But hopefully it just doesn't go on into November, like with Brentwood and some of those other streets. Suddenly they were being done in November. But you're pretty sure that these could be done before the cold?
Well, we're going to do as much as we can.
Right.
Again, we can hold this contract as long as we can.
Right.
One thing that's interesting with paving contracts, and it talks for both of them, Mass DOT has a spec that asphalt prices go up and down. We've already seen this year they're going up, so the cost of asphalt's going up. We're going to have to make sure that we keep our eye on that because we have to pay that differential.
Right.
So they might bid it, but if it goes up by over 5%, we have to pay them more money per ton.
And there's no chance of getting River Street in there because River Street's in pretty bad shape.
River Street needs more than just a mill
Right.
and overlay.
Okay.
That's a full depth reconstruction. We're doing part of River Street when we do that CDBG project.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate the update on that.
I have one more question, Mr. Chairman.
Counselor Steves?
It was kind of brought up by what Heather was just saying a couple minutes ago. And obviously I'm going to use Lebanon Hill, which is my street, even primarily because I know it better than some of the other streets that are of similar age around town. I was curious about some of the sections where it's generally in pretty good shape, but there are some areas that are starting to crumble on the edges and potholes that are popping up and loose sections of pavement and stuff. Which of those treatments would be most effective in those kinds of situations? I'm sure they're all over town too, with some of the streets that are paved maybe 10 or so years ago.
So it's really going to be street by street, but it could be that we do isolated the patches that I talked about, the full depth patches, where we cut out a section and replace it and then put a seal over top of it, but it does depend on street by street. Even when we do mill and overlays, there might be some locations that we realize we mill the top 2 inches off and then the material underneath is not competent, we have to cut it out and
Right.
put pavement in, so. It's hard to say if you're not looking at it street by street. If it's
Right, okay.
isolated spots, you're going to cut them out, you're going to repave them, and then you're going to put a treatment over them.
Okay.
All
Thanks.
right, thank you. Thank you very much for the update, Heather. And that brings us to agenda item number 18, new business. So does anybody have anything they'd like to talk about? Counselor Dow.
Heather, thank you very much for the hard worker.
Thank you.
And we're not trying to give you a hard time, but we have to do things right. And we're not putting all the blame on you or the engineer or the town manager. So hopefully we'll continue doing the good work and improving the town. And thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman?
Counselor Lazo.
The only thing I have to say is it's nice that we took a road study off a shelf and put it to use. And we haven't done anything with roads in a while and bridges. And don't get me wrong, we can get in a whole debate and argument over which road's a priority. I'm just happy that we're doing roads. Okay, whether it's the road I think is right or wrong doesn't matter, because there's only one way to eat an elephant. That's one bite at a time. And at least under this town manager and his director, that we are attacking the problem and we've got to bite it one bite at a time. And it's good to see that we're taking a bite out of the elephant. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Lazo.
I just want to say, I have not met this town manager, but from what I can see, he's a fireball. We're getting things done in this town, and kudos to you, Mr. Town Manager. Heather, and you're doing a great job also. Let's get these roads done. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anything from Ms. Bemis or Counselor Steves? No? All right. I'll accept the motion to adjourn then.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lazo, seconded by Counselor Dow. All those in favor, Counselor Dow?
Yes.
Counselor Steves?
Yes.
Ms. Bemis?
Yes.
Mr. Lazo?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you. Motion to adjourn.